Talksport.
Talksport.
Here's to the nation's care workers.
Stay safe and thank you.
Talksport. Stay at home and give coronavirus the red card.
Now, on ITV4, I mean, there've been loads of... it's been, an opportunity to watch sports documentaries, isn't it? I'm currently on The Last Dance. I'm on the NFL, the NBA thing and Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. And it is really fascinating because I don't really know anything about basketball at all. And just to see... And I always think it's fascinating, and I think... because I'm in a football bubble, that you forget that some people literally don't know anything about the backstory to anyone. I know nothing about the backstory to Michael Jordan, and I'm learning about it. And here is someone who is so famous, and so well known, and this story is so well known. But it's brilliantly done. I've just done Sunderland Till I Die as well. I recommend those. There's a brilliant one out tomorrow. It was on BT Sport back in November. It's on ITV4 tomorrow morning. It's going to be streamed on Sunday on ITV Hub. It's called Brothers in Football, and this is the trailer to it.
We love you, Corinthians!
When does any non-league club, let alone professional club, experience this?
We are the original Corinthians.
There won't be any Corinthians Paulistas if there wasn't Corinthians.
This one man, these two footballs gifted to him by Corinthians, gave the nation of Brazil football.
It's just gone a bit crazy. What on earth have we got ourselves into?
Brothers in Football. Let's talk to the filmmaker Chris Watney, who made it. Took him 6 years to make it. Chris, how are you?
Yeah, hi. Nice to be on. Thank you.
No, not a problem. Thanks so much for coming on. It's a fascinating story, isn't it? Because people will know of people who vaguely follow South American football in the sense that they might listen to Tim Vickery once a week on Talksport, will have heard the name Corinthians and not really be aware of this massive team in Sao Paulo, isn't it? And then actually where that comes from, which is Corinthians, the team that you might know sort of won the FA, or was in the FA Cup in the 1880s, and the link between them is fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the real thing of the film, is just telling that backstory, like you were saying about Michael Jordan. People might know the name, but they don't really know what the Corinthians really did, and it's an amazing link that this team, which is now a non-league amateur team in the South London leagues, and They started the Corinthians in Sao Paulo. It's amazing.
And why did you want to make the film?
Well, it came round to the 100-year anniversary of the end of the First World War. And there was a story where the Corinthians were on a boat to Brazil in 1914 when they found out that the war had started. So they had to return straight away without kicking a ball. And that generation of players who are credited with popularizing the game all around the world, they got wiped out in the war. And so we thought in 2014, let's try and go back and fulfill the tour that never happened in 1914. And so we did it. We put on a match with the non-league amateur side against the world champions at the time. It was, it's an amazing thing. And at the end of the film, you see Chiche, who's now the Brazilian manager, coming up against Matt Howard, who was a taxi driver and the manager of his non-league team.
That's brilliant.
It's brilliant. It's really lovely.
And how did Matt Howard feel at that point? Did he feel like he'd bitten off more than he could chew, or?
Yeah, I think so. He had to do a press conference after the match to hundreds of journalists, and he was sat there next to the now Brazilian manager, who's sort of the Jose Mourinho of South American football. And and then 2 days later he was back driving his cab. So it was a really surreal experience for the guys. And Jamie Byert, who's the star striker of the Casuals, is a scaffolder in Tooting, and he actually even got a couple of minutes playing for the Corinthians Paulista in Sao Paulo. So, yeah, it was amazing, really amazing.
Obviously, we know that football is massive all around the world. I think sometimes, especially when we get to big tournaments, we get a bit of hubris in this country that we sort of underestimate just how powerful this is everywhere. I mean, not everyone does, and people will say, don't be ridiculous, but I sometimes sense that I go abroad and then I realise that this is massive everywhere. And you must have, I don't know if you were surprised by just the power of football in Brazil. We all know it exists, but when you actually see it firsthand, if it blew you away at all.
Oh, it was phenomenal. I mean, the guys landed at the airport, and we just walked through, and there were thousands of fans. I think there's something like 5,000 Corinthian Paulista fans came out to sing the club into Brazil, and were throwing the players up on their shoulders and all this. And the fans and the passion for football out there, and the passion for this story, which in England, people don't know this story. If you go to Tolworth, where the Casuals play, they don't know the story. And yet, they're in Sao Paulo, 6,000 miles away. They were, it was incredible.
When I go to Tolworth, I'm playing Knaresborough away, and that is a tough place to go.
Tough guys.
To be honest, Chris. But you're right. I don't think of Corinthians even when I'm in Tolworth. How are the current side doing? Because they're an amateur side, but they play at a very high level, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. So they're currently the highest ranked amateur team in the country, because the Corinthians were all about amateurism. They were started by the FA. To sort of improve English football, and they believed in strict amateurism, and the current club have continued that, but they play in a semi-professional league, and they were four places off the bottom when the coronavirus struck, and the league got suspended, and so they've survived the season, and they've done all right. It's just hard because every year it gets harder because more money gets put into even the non-league level, and so if you're paying your players nothing, it's a challenge, but they've done well.
How did you approach them? How did you approach with both sets of Corinthians? Who did you approach first? And did they believe you when you told a group of plumbers and taxi drivers and normal blokes, I'm going to take you to Brazil and you're going to play in front of 30,000 people?
Yeah, well, I had originally played for Corinthian-Casuals, so I sort of knew of the story, and I went to them and I said, come on, let's try and do this. And then it took about 6 months getting through to Corinthians Paulista, who weren't at first particularly interested in taking on this team. And then they warmed up over time. But when it really happened was when the fans got involved, and they actually started a poll to see who they wanted to play against. Open their new stadium, which was being built for the World Cup in 2014. And on the poll, they had Barcelona, Chelsea, Real Madrid, and Corinthian-Casuals. and the Corinthian-Casuals won. And so then the Brazilian club was suddenly like, well, hang on, this is quite special. And they really embraced it after that. But yeah, it was something where the fans really drove it.
That's great. And I imagine that, the players of Corinthian-Casuals, footballers like a tour at the end of the season. You say, oh, it's in Brazil. You're like, well, wow. They can't have taken much persuading.
No, they were very, some guys couldn't get time off work, which was awful. There were guys missing out on this amazing experience because they couldn't get 5 days off. And that's the nature of, being the amateurs and having to have a job as well. But yeah, for the guys, it was you're not going to forget something like that, are you?
Did anyone miss the flight home?
No one missed the flight home. I had a few struggles getting there. I just recently went there, actually, for the premiere in Brazil. But coronavirus struck when I landed in Brazil that day, basically. And so the whole thing got cancelled, and we had to try and find a plane to get back. So that was a whole different saga. But, no one got left there.
And do you think, from making the film and bringing these two sides together, in ways you've kind of recreated a link between these two teams that will hopefully last for a long time?
Yeah, that's definitely the hope. This year is the 110-year anniversary of the Brazilian club, and they are launching a new shirt, I believe, which is going to pay homage to the Corinthian-Casuals and the story of the history of it all. And so, they're now happy to sell the kit of the Corinthian-Casuals in Brazil because there's a bit of a fan base there who want to buy it. And so hopefully going forward, the clubs can sort of grow and build this sort of relationship because it'd be great for the Casuals. It's brilliant.
Just remind us when people can see it again.
Well, it's on ITV4 on Sunday, tomorrow at 9 o'clock, and then it's going to be on ITV Hub for the next month. So you can catch it there.
Fantastic.
Brilliant. Well, listen, thanks so much for coming on. It's a great story, Chris, and well done for making the film.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Cheers there. Chris Watney there, Brothers in Football filmmaker on ITV4, as he said. It'll be on ITV Hub as well, so you can watch it at your leisure. You are listening to the Warm Up on Talksport. Max Ross and Charlie Baker with you to one after the break. Live from Rob Rouse's garden. It is chicken racing. Rupert Bell will join us as well. Obviously, it's been another controversial week, but hopefully we will have a race full of incident, but without incident, if you see what I mean, coming up in just a second.